1. I work at a chain restaurant in the US. You've definitely heard of it. I'm serving to keep my head above water while I figure out what I want to do. I had managed at a different, albeit similar, restaurant for years before I came to this place a month or two ago. I was working a double today. It sucked. We were busy, but way overstaffed, and I had 4 tables in 3 hours. Not a 4-table section, just 4 tables between noon and 3 p.m. Somewhere in the middle of this, my section got moved by a manager, so I took my second-to-last table in a different area of the restaurant. Then, because management is incompetent, the new section I was given got one of the tables changed, because it had already been sat. So to clarify, I started my day in the 300s with 3 tables in the 300s area of the restaurant. Then I got moved to 111, 112, 113 in the 100s. But then got switched again, so I actually had 111, 113, and 114. I got a table at a new table that my section had been amended to include 114. It was a 2-top of older people, retirees. I gave them good service, and at the end I gave them a paper copy of the check. But I had them pay on the kiosk on the table, so they could fill out the survey saying I did a good job. The management is very concerned about these surveys and gives you a hard time if you run the card the old-fashioned way. I watched the guy close out on the kiosk and add a tip to it. Everything seemed cool. Since I was on a double, they make you clock out and take a minimum 20-minute break. I went to do that and run my checkout. But it still said I had an open table. That was weird. I looked at it, and it said 114 was unpaid. I went to the table, my guest had already left, and looked at the kiosk. It was the wrong table's kiosk. My guests had paid for a $50 check next to them, not their $35 check. I found a manager, explained the situation. The people with the $50 check were still there, but the manager, who happens to be the GM of this dump, deleted my guest's payment from the check, but said she could get some token number out of the back and apply the payment to my check. She tried that, and it didn't work. She couldn't get the payment to go through. She said that she wasn't going to hold me responsible for them not paying. But the bad news was I wasn't getting the tip either. I was outraged. I thought back to my years of management experience. For one thing, I wouldn't have deleted the payment to begin with. I'm sure the 2 checks could have been combined and the payments adjusted. But to not give me the, out of petty cash or whatever, the $10 I was tipped, it seemed insane to me, especially because my section had been charged twice. Like, an argument could have been made, I think, that I should have made sure the kiosk was on the right table at the beginning of the shift, but not when they charged my section 2 times on the damn fly. I wanted to tell this manager that she was a miserable, incompetent idiot, which is why turnover is at like 400% here, but cooler heads prevailed. I took the quick break and tried to get back to work. During that time, there was a large party of about 40 that came in and tipped their group of servers about 10%. I then saw the same manager who deleted my payment go around and hand each of the 3 servers who worked that party an extra $20. Then I really saw red. If it's a blanket policy that servers aren't remunerated in instances like the nitwit manager deleting a payment, that's shitty, but it is what it is. But don't have the policy and start kissing the asses of certain other servers, especially when that's a gamble you take with large parties. You win some, you lose some. I see a lot of stuff on Reddit about going to the state labor board with stuff like this, but would anything actually happen? Additionally, I was sat down by the GM a few weeks ago, and she was trying to find out if I had reported sexual harassment to corporate. I hadn't, and was confused by the encounter until I found out a few days later that another server had gone to corporate with those complaints, and they fired him once they found out who it was. So her sitting me down seems like part of a witch hunt to find out who had made the report and punish him. Not to, actually take the report seriously. So I'm apprehensive to go to corporate with this because it's probably going to spell the end of my job here, which is fine, but I want to have something else lined up first. So is there a statute of limitations for this kind of thing? 2. So around the beginning of the pandemic, I landed a job at a well-known US fast food chain. The GM was a tall, stocky, bald guy. Really liked my interview, so from the beginning, he told me that he hired me with the intention of making me a manager someday soon. So I busted my butt every day, proving my worth, often doing the work of a full staff, around 7 or 8 people, all by myself. I worked this hard because my previous job had just laid me off due to the effects of the pandemic on the hospitality industry. Cancelled vacations and so on. And so I was just happy to have a job. In order to become a manager, you had to take a ServSafe exam. Usually you'd get promoted whether or not you passed the exam, but per state law, there was always to be a ServSafe certified manager on duty at all shifts. Given that there were so few of us, 3 including myself and the GM, that ServSafe cert was invaluable, but I'm getting ahead of myself. One day, in the middle of my shift, the GM approaches me with a book of study for my certification. I'm excited because I know that this means a promotion and a significant pay rise. I studied this book like my life depends on it, with every free moment that I get throughout the day spent in the book. I'm a quick study, and I progress really well through the book, but there is one major issue. The more I read, the more I discover that there were so many health code violations happening at the workplace. A lot of these fast food workers aren't paid enough to care about cleanliness. Most places will be okay with the appearance of cleanliness. I mean, improper food storage, cross-contamination, changing the dates on expired products, just to name a few. We even had minors, 16 and 17, working in the kitchen. I decided to approach the GM about my concerns, hoping that we could get to work on fixing a few things. Instead, I met with him snarling back at me, "Just do what I say." I am shocked. Then he begins to make my life as miserable as he can. He would intentionally short-staff the shifts that I worked because he knew that I wouldn't complain about doing extra work. And then when our numbers suffered because there was literally 3 of us doing the work of 7 or 8 people, he would bark at me at the beginning of the next shift in the presence of my coworkers. He went in deep, calling me worthless and all types of names just to degrade me. He would normally threaten my job about 2 or 3 times during a shift. I actually began to gaslight myself into believing that I was in the wrong and to just work harder. It didn't really click that I wasn't doing anything wrong until one day, when I stopped by during the morning shift — I worked nights — to check in on something, and I noticed the morning manager clock in, then go back outside to smoke and have breakfast. I was so shocked because no one said anything. I approached one of the morning guys that I knew I could trust and asked him if this was a normal occurrence. He said yes, along with so many other things that this female manager got away with that I would probably be fired on the spot for. During this entire fiasco, after many breakdowns, where I would go to the freezer to cry, I did it. I passed my ServSafe exam. I was very proud of myself. If my life was miserable before, I didn't have the words to begin to describe what my life became after getting certified. Apparently, I have no way of verifying this. The GM became threatened by me and intensified my misery. I forgot to mention that in an attempt to save money so his numbers looked good, he would literally make some workers work days for free. Let me explain. I noticed that some employees would work double 5 days a week and get paid the exact same as the workers who worked normal hours. People, listen to me. Hard work is rarely, if at all, rewarded in the US. This man would manipulate the time clocks to essentially force some of the more gullible employees to work overtime and only get paid for 40 hours. I kid you not, there was this young girl, fresh out of high school, who would somehow manage to work 70+ hours a week and only be paid 40. She somehow thought this was normal. Here's the kicker. While he was manipulating the clocks, abusing some of these kids, he would always be in the clock even when he'd left for the day. One day, I had the audacity to clock him out because he wasn't in. This man gave me the tongue lashing of a lifetime next time he saw me. Now comes the karma, and it was sweet. The thing about cosmic justice. is that it has a sense of humor and irony. I specifically remember that in one of my GM's tirades, he would tell me that I would be coming in here as just a customer and not an employee at some point. Keep this in mind because this is important for later. So a random Tuesday morning, I'm still recovering from last night's shift when I get a phone call from one of the morning employees. She can barely get a word out in utter shock, but I made out what she was saying. "They just fired the GM!" I let out this maniacal laugh that I'm sure my entire neighborhood heard. I laughed to the point of crying. So apparently the store was doing so bad that it caught corporate's attention. They sent a couple of guys to do an audit, and get this, they pointed out every violation that I had previously pointed out to the GM. It was so bad that they fired him on the spot. The corporate guys became our acting GM. The store had to be shut down for a couple of days to fix the crap fest that it had become. Get this. Remember how the GM said that I would one day come to the store as a customer and not an employee? Well, guess who ended up coming to order food a week after being fired? I almost snapped my ankle running up to the front to serve him with a smirk. To make matters worse, his wife left him after he was fired. Apparently he was cheating on her with the morning shift manager. It all made sense now. How she got away with anything. We only found out because she used his phone to text the work group chat after exposing the affair and telling us that this man had contracted an STD from the affair. It felt great to be validated and vindicated for everything I pointed out. Over the next couple of weeks, we went through a couple of GMs from neighboring stores who came to fill in. Eventually, things got way better. I left the job a few months later for health reasons, and got a better job that paid twice what I was making back there. 3. 30 years ago, after training as a chef for 3 years, I started a new job as a sous chef in a very busy restaurant and hotel in town. This place was a touristy place. Still wonder why. We had 3 to 5 buses to be served a day in summer. Anyhow, our place was run by women. Kitchen, front of house, housekeeping, reservation, the lot. The only problem was the owner of the place, a sexist, ignorant piece of poop. He always made our shifts hell. He claimed that he had the best palate in town, since he claimed he can taste if there was too little salt in spaghetti carbonara, spiced with 2 teaspoons of chili. You get the idea. One day, we served 3 buses of 50 people a pop. He enters the kitchen a half hour before we go to our 4-hour break. He wanted his food for the day, a Wiener Schnitzel. A cut of veal so thin you could read a paper through it, covered in breadcrumbs and cooked in heaps of butter. I cut the meat. I just started to prepare it when he comes into the kitchen and tells us he forgot to tell us that there is another bus due to arrive, which means at least another hour of work. Bugger. What am I going to do with this lunch? I don't have the time to finish it due to the tickets coming in. I have to store it somewhere. My first and best choice was the pig bucket. Restaurants used to put the food waste in the bucket and put it in a barrel at the end of the day, and then pig farmers would come in once a week to pick it up. Have I mentioned it was about 30 degrees and about 40 degrees in the kitchen? What happens with food waste? It starts to boil and ferment. So little me decided to marinate his schnitzel in the Schweineimer. We finished the 50-plus orders, and the piece of shit demanded his food. Here you go. I fished it out of the bucket, removed the clinging bits. No, washing the schnitzel was not in my head. I don't want to waste the eggs. Covered it in breadcrumbs and fried it and served it. He came back and honest to God said it was the best schnitzel he'd ever had. It took about 30 minutes for everyone, but him, to hear about the little revenge I took. 4. I was a server at a shitty little pizza place, and about a month into my time there we got a new GM. We also hired a bunch of new servers, and even though I was one of the newest there, I was training them. Having worked in food service for over 15 years, I wanted the new servers to make sure they were always setting up their co-workers for success, with the main thing being cleaning and resetting their sections properly. The bare minimum. Sweep under your tables and arrange it correctly when resetting it. Well, management sucked a gigantic bag of dicks and didn't hold anyone accountable for their work. I was tired of always cleaning up after people because I take pride in my work and can't just leave things sitting half done. So, every time someone didn't do their shit, I told the GM. I probably said something 3 to 5 times in a couple of week time period. Nothing changed. One night I got a 27 top that was mostly children, a little girl's flag football team. So it was chaotic and a mess when they left. They were gone at 8:15 and we closed at 9. I went about clearing the tables, resetting them, sweeping, mopping, and vacuuming. It was a total of 8 tables that needed to be cleaned up and put back. I got done with that shortly after 9 and noticed my GM had done a couple of my closing duties. I thought, cool, thanks. I'm getting ready to vacuum the rest of the restaurant at 9:25 as she comes stomping over and yells at me, "You always want to complain about other people not doing their work? Well, I just did 90% of yours." I'm sitting there like, the fuck? I was cleaning a large party and you did like 3 closing tasks for me. Plus, it's not that I wasn't going to do it, it's that I had a party and was running later than I usually would. She comes back and I tell her that pissed me off, and what was that about? Apparently 9:15 is our firm time to be out, news to me, and she was annoyed that we were running 30 minutes behind. Mind you, the bartender was still doing closing things this whole time. I said I had a party to clean up and my section is immaculate. Sorry for running behind. She then went on about how what she talks to other people about is none of my business, and I'm not better than anyone. I'm like, you're correct? I don't care what you say to other people, and I don't think I'm better. I just want you to hold people accountable for cleaning their sections. She went on to make excuses and gaslight me, so I said, well, I don't agree, and I won't be coming back again. Mind you, this business is going under, and it was so slow making $100 on an 11-hour double was considered a good day. I didn't make enough money to put up with the bull. She was on a power trip, and I heard later she was mad because I was telling her how to do her job and then report back to me. What the fuck, you crazy bitch? Just had to vent. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. 5. I just finished my work week and pulled 3 doubles back to back, pushing over 55 hours this week. I'm also a full-time student, taking over 20 credit hours this semester, so it's safe to say I was exhausted. It's the end of the night and I'm ready to go home when I get sad one last time and the hostess gives me a glance, letting me know there's going to be a problem. It's a table of 3. 2 elderly folks and a special needs son about 35 years old. I try to ignore her glance and go to their table to do the usual spiel. Hi, my name is, and I'll be serving you this evening. Have you been here before? Before I can even finish getting my words out, the father cuts me off, telling me what he wants to drink. All right, I brush it off and go get their drinks. When I come back, the son had gone to the bathroom, and they wanted to order for him. They wanted to get him chicken tenders off the kids' menu. I tell him we have an adult version that's 5 tenders instead of 3, and he assures me he wants 3. I tell him the price difference, and mention I will still need to charge him the $5 upcharge since his son is 35, not 10 or under. He pretends not to hear me, so I just walk away and go ring in their order. They complained about how long the food took, but other than that seemed to be pleasant the rest of the meal. Until it came time to pay. I'm not sure what diagnosis their son had, but you could tell he was mentally disabled to some degree, though still had social skills, minimal. So they told him to pay on his own card. They saw the itemized receipt and waited until after they paid to rip into me about why they had to pay for the $5 upcharge when their son was mentally 10 years old. At first I couldn't tell if he was being serious, but he was. I told him, "Sir, I apologize, but that isn't under my discretion. The kids' menu is meant for kids 10 and under, regardless of outside factors." He continued to rip into me in front of all my tables about how I don't care about the special needs community, that I'm no ally, that I think I'm better than him because I have all of my chromosomes. I had no idea what to do or say, so I apologized and said I would get my manager involved, and quickly hurried away so I could cry in the back. They ended up leaving because my manager said that was policy and they can't go against it. They stiffed me on a $70 and $20 tab and wrote "poor" in capital letters across all of the checks. I had a great week other than that, but they're definitely added to my list of worst tables I've served in 6 years. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates, episode 227. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, I would appreciate it if you hit the like button. That little click is how you let YouTube know you enjoyed the video. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can do that by supporting me through my Patreon. That'll let you get early access to the videos. And you can also buy yourself some Hellfreezer merchandise. Both of these are linked in the description. And if you'd like to support the channel on a more one-off basis, you can do that by clicking on the little heart with the $sign just below the video, and you can select a donation of your choice. While you don't have to do this, it is very much appreciated, and it helps keep me in the luxurious life of a YouTuber, doing things like paying rent and buying groceries. Okay, I don't think we've any other business, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is... there we go. Turkey or ham for Thanksgiving dinner? I know some folks have a preference. Me personally, as I say, I'm not Scottish, so I don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but I will shove either of those in my face. They're both very, very yummy. I haven't cooked a turkey for a very long time. It's been quite a few years. I just kind of started having a nice little bit of steak at Christmas. Don't know what I'm doing this year. Like I said, I'm probably not going to bother with anything this year. I'll eat, just I won't do a fancy dinner. But I used to do turkey. I like to do it with lots of butter, basted. I don't do stuffing. I'm not a fan of stuffing. But I would put bacon on the outside of the turkey so the flavour of the bacon would permeate in there. And that was very, very yummy. But why don't you let me know what you think in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening. And take very good care of yourselves.